Hey, it's David Bates with Archer Hires, and this is about outbound sourcing for talent and how we're able to use this technique to get candidates in 3 to 5 days for jobs that have been open for months, or for companies who only have a very short window to hire for a particular position. Outbound sourcing far exceeds in speed and quality of candidates any other sourcing technique that we've ever come across. And it has been a lot of work to develop, but we're so happy to share it with you. To make sure you're in the right place, let's talk about the kinds of companies that outbound sourcing for talent works for. So we have been the top recruiter in the country for the largest provider of home health services in the country. They have a multi-million-dollar recruiting budget. They have an enormous internal recruiting team, but they also still have very difficult jobs to fill. And when they do, they call us. And we are able to fill those jobs using outbound sourcing techniques. We worked with smaller companies. Mid-sized company in Houston, Texas needed a physical therapist and a clinical liaison sales position. So they had advertised on Indeed for almost 4 months. They had worked with 2 other agencies. They had 0 physical therapist applicants, and they had a bunch of the wrong applicants for the clinical liaison position. Within a week, we had 3 physical therapy candidates who were qualified and enthused about meeting their company. And we had 9 clinical liaison candidates that we had scheduled all on the same day, and they had success with both of those positions. We have worked with a small cabinet shop. The owner there had spent over $2,000 on ads on Indeed and ZipRecruiter. He wasn't getting any applicants. They kept telling him, well, it's the way that the ad's written. So he worked with their customer support team and rewrote the ad so that it would properly trigger the algorithms, reposted the ad, paid more money. The ad, again, didn't deliver. And he received a text from us. We outbound source for clients just like we outbound source for candidates, and gave us a call. Very frustrated about his experience, and on a whim, gave us a shot. We were able to fill his shop positions, and he was able to take on projects that he was otherwise turning away to his competitors. It was a big deal in a small town. So in our experience, outbound sourcing works very successfully for some of the largest companies in the country and for some of the smallest shops in town. So what is outbound sourcing for talent? Well, to understand that, we have to understand what inbound sourcing is. Inbound sourcing is essentially working to get candidates to come to you. And most people accomplish that by placing ads on job boards and hoping that somebody finds those ads. It's getting more and more difficult as the number of jobs placed on those job boards grows exponentially. We just did a search for a hospice nurse in San Diego, California. 601 job openings for hospice nurse within a 25-mile radius of San Diego. That's 41 pages of ads on Indeed. So placing ads, hoping someone applies. Hoping the right person applies, hoping you get to that person before your competitors do. There's a whole lot of things about inbound sourcing that have to come together and work perfectly for that to be successful for you. And as time goes on and the labor market continues to tighten in certain fields, those odds diminish exponentially. Outbound sourcing is essentially the opposite. Outbound sourcing isn't waiting for candidates to come to you. Outbound sourcing is taking your job opportunities to qualified candidates and presenting them with a very carefully crafted, tantalizing offer that gets them to apply. Let me give you the best example I can think of to explain the difference between inbound and outbound sourcing. Inbound sourcing is this. You have cookies on your shopping list and you're on your way home from work and you're going to stop at the grocery store. You run into the grocery store, you buy all of the other things on your list. Cookies is on there. You're racing down the cooking aisle because you've got to be someplace else and you got to get home. And you see a few different kinds of cookies that might be good. You grab them, you throw them in the cart, and you're going to figure it out when you get home to see whether or not you got the right one. Outbound sourcing is my 9-year-old neighbor, Addison, who showed up at my house on a Saturday morning with a plate full of cookies. She had peanut butter cookies, she had chocolate chip cookies, and she had mint chocolate chip cookies. And these were the samples. She told me I would probably like the mint chocolate chip cookie the best, and she gave me one to try. And she said if I wanted to order some cookies, she would be back between 3 and 4 o'clock that afternoon with a hot plate of cookies. The mint chocolate chip was delicious. I ended up ordering peanut butter and mint chocolate chip and organizing my whole Saturday around Addison coming back between 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon so I would get my cookies when they were warm. What was the difference? Well, inbound sourcing, you are hoping people find your cookies, essentially. Outbound sourcing, somebody knocks on the door and delivers you a tantalizing offer that you weren't even necessarily shopping for cookies, but it sure looked good, and you reorganize your day because you're enthused about what has been presented to you and the possibilities it represents. That's the difference between inbound sourcing and outbound sourcing. How do we achieve it? Well, it's not that simple. And in fact, we saw the problem coming as we watched those numbers on the job boards go up and up and up for the number of applicants, and knowing that the number of applicants became fewer and fewer and fewer. So we decided we had to find a solution. It took about 7 different software programs and various delivery platforms to create the system that we have so that we're able to zero in on exactly the right candidates. You add to that a whole lot of study of influence and how to create exactly the right message that is going to trigger a response. And you add that to delivery systems that are going to work seamlessly in contacting these people and not get you kicked out of those systems. There's a whole lot of tricks to what we have accomplished. But the main trick is that it delivers. And that's what's critical. So evaluate for a second where your recruiting systems are and how they're working now, and then imagine. Here's what we offer. Instead of, all of that work to understand all of the elements that have to come together for an inbound campaign to work, and all those little things that if they go wrong, it doesn't work, and the exponentially growing odds, diminishing odds of those campaigns actually working, that's one thing to consider. And here's the alternative. You call our account manager. We employ our systems, put all the mechanisms in place. We then do the screening. We do the prepping of the candidates, and we deliver 3 or 4 candidates to you that are perfectly qualified to do the job. They are in the right location. They fit your salary or compensation requirements, and they are enthused about your job and meeting your company. And the odds of them converting into hires is significantly higher than any candidates that come through the inbound system. So hopefully at this point, you have enough information to decide whether or not this is something you'd like to pursue and gather more information on. Next step I would recommend is a 15-minute call. You can book on my calendar. The link is below, and book a 15-minute block. And it usually doesn't take longer than that to decide whether or not this is something that's going to be successful for you. In that time, we can take a look at your industry. We can look at your company. We can look at the methods that you're already employing, what systems you have in place. A lot of times when we look at systems that are already in place, we can see something that's a little out of place, that needs a little adjustment. And with that adjustment, we can help you be successful with what you already have. And we're happy to do that. But we can also see if maybe outbound sourcing is what's missing from your arsenal, and talk about how that might be employed to bring about success in your company. And if it makes sense, talk about setting up a trial search. So that's it. If you feel like outbound sourcing is something that might benefit your company, might help solve the hiring difficulties that you're having, book a time on my calendar. Let's have a 15-minute call and see what we learn from each other. Make it a great day.